Beam me aboard. Energize.
Energizing.
Kirk to transporter room. Report.
You're listening to Transporter Room 3 with your hosts, Phil Perello and Scott Calora.
Welcome back, dear listeners, to another fine installment of Transporter Room 3. Scott, how's it hanging, man? It's been 2 weeks. We had to go talk to our counselor Troy's. Well, my Zadi, your counselor Troy. I Rikered that shit. And in that time span, we still thought about the movie. I think we agree that it's not the worst movie ever made, but it's definitely its cousin. And we got a generous email sampling of reviews and opinions from our listeners. And firstly, thank you to everyone who emailed. I know we responded to some. Thank you to everyone who emailed, taking the time to do that. That is just really great. It shows how much you care about Trek and about our little podcast here, and that's just really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's great to get that reaction, and there a lot of people seem to agree with our take on the movie.
And a few
Some people
liked it, and that's fine. I mean, that's what movies are made for, to give different opinions.
Yeah.
So everyone can have their own experience with it. I disagree with some of the positive reviews, and that's fine. And you guys can disagree with ours. But it's just really cool to have like a discussion as lively as this.
Yeah. So, we're gonna pull a couple of those emails and Facebook messages and we'll kind of respond to some points that you guys made. That's gonna be kind of what we talk about this week. But first, just wanted to talk about the box office on Star Trek Into Darkness a bit. I think that the consensus is that it has generally underperformed domestically at this point.
A little bit.
Right, yeah. So
it barely matched its 3-day total with the original 2009 Trek. It came in under that.
Yeah. And that's with the...
That's with the midnight and 3D, IMAX, all that, which 2009 did not have.
Right. And ticket prices are probably higher now as well, right?
Right.
So basically it's not... In the US, it's not doing as well as it did... as well as the 2009 film did. Internationally, it's doing better, which was their big push. It made well, I mean, I'm on Box Office Mojo right now. I don't know if these dates reflect the numbers from this week or if it just goes up through the weekend. But as of now, it's made 102 million in foreign box office and 164 million in domestic. So that brings it to 266 million worldwide so far. But to just give that a little sort of color and comparison, Fast and Furious 6, which just came out, right? That has already made 332 million worldwide. And
that movie's just a monster.
Yeah.
Maybe I feel that's not the best comparison.
Oh shit. Why you gotta be down on my comparisons, man?
I'm sorry, Scott. Sorry.
Well, what else can we look at? Let's see.
We can look at the original Star Trek. I mean, Fast 6 kind of blew everyone away with its Memorial Day weekend performance. I think it's also, to play devil's advocate, it's important to note that Into Darkness held up much better than they were anticipating.
Yes, it did. During the Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, it dropped less than 60%, which shows that it had some retainer due to some surprisingly strong word of mouth.
Yeah.
Surprised to me and Scott.
Yeah, I mean, it was well reviewed and it did well. It's word of mouth. What is it? The cinema score, is that what they call it? When they poll people who come out of the theater and they
And I've never seen anyone do that.
no, I've never had that done.
I
But
kind of want to.
so Star Trek, I pulled up Star Trek 2009 here. It made a total of 127 million foreign. That's in its whole run.
Damn.
This one already has made 102 million. So obviously they did well on the foreign front. And that was their big push. You know, a lot of the marketing was designed that way. They did a lot of special foreign press events and things. Domestically, the 2009 film made 257 million. And so far the new one is at 164 million. So it's not gonna, at this point, it's not gonna make another $90 million. It's not gonna catch up to the domestic gross of the 2009 film.
Yeah, I think it's going to fall a little short, and whatever the plans are for a third film, that's going to impact that. I bet the budget will not be the almost 200 million they've reportedly spent.
Yeah, so you might be getting a Star Trek 3 level budget with the fake styrofoam rock planet set.
Hey, what's wrong with that, man?
Nothing is wrong with
It
that.
worked in 84. It can work in 13 or 2016, whenever it comes out.
So it's funny because even though the movie seemed to have strong word of mouth and was pretty well reviewed, it still didn't quite catch on. Apparently it didn't attract the under 25 crowd,
Right.
which is a big important number. So there's something there. I don't know what it is. Star Trek is still not. It's not a hip thing for some reason, on some level. No matter how much they tried to hip it up, it's not really working on this one. So it's interesting. I'm not sure what that is, but maybe the concept of Star Trek just is old, and maybe it is better suited on TV ultimately.
Or maybe that's true, and maybe also it's better suited with a good movie backing it.
Maybe, but
A good story.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. But the reviews and the word of mouth on it don't really match what you and I think of it. So
I know, we're in the minority.
Yeah.
I think when the dust settles, Dark Knight Rises style, people in places they don't like to talk about at parties, they're gonna go, yeah, this maybe it wasn't that good.
Yeah, but it's funny how Dark Knight Rises really has people have kind of come around on that one, right? And
A little bit, yeah.
admitted. So, all right. So anyway, let's move on, and let's talk a little bit about we'll respond to a few of the messages we got, emails and Facebook messages and the such about the film that were kind of contrary to our take on it. Mark Dunhauer, I think his name is, said, "I love your podcast, love the sense of humor to it all. I totally get it. But your review of Into Darkness was poorly conceived, seeing as you both at times were struggling to recall the plot, and Phil had seen the film more than once. I understand the disappointment you can have when you create preconceived notions of what it can or could have been, but I feel you missed the positive aspects of this film. I feel I need to remind you of 3 words that this whole new and probably ill-fated franchise is all about: alternate timeline. This is something I don't think you're giving enough of a wide berth to. I think if you allow yourself to accept it as it is, then the references to original canon are more enjoyable and satisfying." So he's saying that we're not willing to accept that it's an alternate timeline. And that,
Well, I don't. If we're using the context of our podcast verbatim as text,
I haven't memorized it. I do have it memorized.
I wish I did. I need the transcript. If we're using that as text, we're coming at it to form a counter argument with, then I'm fairly certain at no point we specifically say, we don't get the alternate universeness or the alternate timeline thing, or that we have a hard time accepting that that's the path they're going. If anything, we have a difficult time seeing whether this is a Star Trek movie or a cops and robbers film or another space franchise, we have a hard time embracing the story choices that were executed.
A cops and robbers. Wait, hold on. A cops and robbers film. What was it? 1937.
Let me clarify. Whether where we were discussing critically the Star Trek film or cops and robbers movie or any film, it's not. It doesn't matter if the canon is X or there's an alternate reality involved with Y. It's whatever the movie is, whatever story that the movie is more to. If it's a problem, that's what we're going to respond to, and that's what we were strongly responding to in our discussion of Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah. So
I feel like maybe the person who sent that email,
Mark,
maybe Mark was just listening to one part of our thing and missing the larger scope, which is there are certain story choices that we know go into making great movies, really good movies. Your hero isn't a dick. And if your hero lies in your movie, it should be for the betterment of something else and at the sacrifice of himself in the process.
Yeah.
Not because he's a petulant baby who doesn't like the rules. Yeah. That's a problematic hero. And when that hero is Captain James T. Kirk and all the history that carries, that's a problem. Yeah. Whether this is an alternate reality or not, I don't think the core of Kirk should change. How he gets to it, maybe, how others engage him on that is allowed to change. You can do whatever you want with that, but when you make your hero someone who morally and ethically seems less than you, when he should be greater than all of us in that realm, you've done something off. Yeah. You've done something problematic, and I would encourage Mark to re-listen to our podcast and maybe listen for the story stuff we were dissecting, as opposed to a small kernel of our argument delivered at making references to the timeline that were inconsistent.
I think a lot of people were we got a lot of remarks similar to Mark's about us not really being open-minded about the alternate timeline, and specifically about Kirk, and the fact that Kirk is the idea that this Kirk was raised differently than the Kirk Prime, and his dad died, and the whole shebang with the Kelvin, and so he lived with a stepfather or whatever the fuck it was, and
sure.
So people are kind of like, well, you guys aren't seeing that part of it. It's Kirk was raised differently, and I think what you're saying, Phil, and I of course agree with you, is that it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, right. Kirk, he's starting from a different place, but ultimately, the whole point of rebooting Star Trek is to tell the story of Kirk and Spock again, and it still has to be Kirk. The circumstances can be different. He could get to being Kirk in a different way, but this is the second movie in what's probably a 3-picture cycle, and he's still not Kirk. So it's our take on it, and of course this is our opinion, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, but our take on it is that this guy is fundamentally not the character of Kirk. Yeah. And it's not about who raised him or any of that stuff. It's about how the character plays to the audience, how we respond to him. So anyway, now I wanted to Mark, the same guy, Mark, finished out his email by saying, I love your podcast. It brings me great joy, but you guys come off a little silly when you're slamming the film and its quality, and Phil's Skype feed is clipping, and you're essentially telling the makers of the film they suck with 2 tin cans and some string. He's taking a dig at the technology we use to record the podcast.
Okay.
Which, it's neither here. Thanks for the input, Mark. It's neither here nor there in terms of
So
what we're saying about the film, though. I
right.
think, you know.
So if Ebert wrote reviews on stone tablets, they should fall on deaf ears.
So and I mean, having said that, the technology putting this podcast together is something we always are struggling with. You're in California, I'm in New York. We're always trying to figure out the best way to record and make it sound good. If anyone has any ideas or suggestions, we'd love to hear them. I think, we have a fairly decent solution, but I got a kick out of that, and I think the whole email from Mark comes from a good place. He seems like he's a fan, but he got a couple of jabs in at us there. Okay, let's move on. Jonathan Landberg said, I took the Star Trek Into Darkness ending monologue as a prelude to a series. They have all the sets and costumes. Would it really be impossible to get these actors together to do a 12-episode season? He's talking about doing something on TV. What does everyone think? Quinto is no stranger to TV. Would the rest of the cast really be that hard to get? Yeah, it wouldn't happen.
It wouldn't happen. It would be cost prohibitive because these guys are 2 movies in to a big screen franchise that has made significant money, despite the low expectations on this film being met box office wise. Traditionally, big movie stars or those who are perceived to be movie star worthy on the big screen, traditionally they don't quote unquote de-evolve back to television this soon.
Yeah.
You got to get to that 10, 20 years down the road place, Lawrence Fishburne style, when when it's all right for you to go to fucking slum it in cable, network television. So I think it's very hard to get the cast back in, especially Chris Pine, because he has definitely been positioned for the last 4 years as a leading man.
Yeah, even though it doesn't seem to be really happening for him. But
well, I mean, this means war, Scott. That happened.
He does have Jack Ryan coming up next, right? So
yes, he does. For
better or for worse. Why have you heard things about it?
I will talk to you about that off the record.
Okay. So they're trying to make him into something, and they have been, as you say, for years. Zoe Saldana is almost the bigger star in a way.
Yeah, and I would watch her on anything. I'd watch her on an iPhone.
I have watched her on an iPhone.
I have watched her on an iPhone. She is so good in anything and everything she does. I would watch her do whatever. Reboot Alias, put her in it. Done. I'm in. So,
the other thing is, there was a whole right around the time the movie came out 2 weeks ago. There was a story that ran. I can't remember where I read it now, but we posted it on the Facebook page if you guys want to read it. There was a whole thing about how Abrams and his company Bad Robot, when they first undertook Star Trek 2009, they had all these big multimedia plans. They wanted to branch it out into TV. They wanted to do more game stuff, more comic stuff, merchandising and toys and all the rest of it. And they ran into a lot of rights issues because Star Trek is actually owned by 2 different entities now. The rights to the movies are Paramount Pictures, and the rights to the TV stuff is CBS Entertainment, if I understand it correctly. And so Abrams was making his movie for Paramount. CBS Entertainment didn't really want to play house with Abrams on a lot of their ideas for merchandising and things. And so essentially this report implied that there was a plan to do a TV show of some kind, and that it all fell apart back when they were still working on the 2009 Trek because CBS wasn't really down for it. So it wouldn't have been a show featuring Chris Pine and those guys. Who knows what it would have been? Some kind of an offshoot, I guess. Deep Space 10 or something. But or Deep Space 1 maybe, since it's a prequel. Yeah, I don't know. Moving forward, we're still all hoping for a TV show at some point, but I don't think you'll ever see these guys in a TV show. I don't know.
I don't think so. I mean, it would be nice, but I believe that's pipe dreamy.
I think I live in fear. There was a joke floating around recently about a Next Generation reboot, and it had like um, Bryan Cranston as Picard, I think, and like
Okay.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Data or something. I don't know. It was like a joke video or something, and I shuddered when I saw that because you could almost see it happening at some point. Them deciding to reboot the Next Generation, which I don't know. I'm all about the Next Generation lately with these Blu-ray sets, and like
Right.
the idea of them rebooting that would kill me. All right, let's go on to another one here. David Duncan said, "What I'm most troubled about is the Countdown to Darkness comic had nothing to do with the movie, since Robert April and the other Enterprise never made an appearance. The first Countdown for the 2009 movie made the villain more three-dimensional. This Countdown was all about Robert April. The only thing the movie referenced in the Countdown to Darkness was the Mudd incident, where they confiscated Harry Mudd's daughter's spaceship, and then in the movie they took that was the ship they took to Kronos. That's in 4 comics, and it was only that one tiny subplot that related between the two. I haven't read any of those comics.
I read one of them,
Yeah.
and I can't really speak to it, but yeah, I was surprised that some of the April stuff that I heard was going on in the comic that I read did, failed to find its way into the movie. That could have been interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. It's because you had read the Nero comic, right?
I did.
Back when, and so that sounded as though it did kind of fill in Nero's backstory.
A lot,
more,
actually,
right?
yeah. And I thought one of the very interesting elements was how the Narada was a fusion of Romulan tech and Borg technology.
Right. That's right.
That was cool, and whether or not that indirectly sets the stage for the Borg to make an appearance in this universe, holy shit. That would be awesome. But yeah, I'm curious how After Darkness is shaping up, because I believe the first issue, I read an excerpt, it opens with the Klingons, picking up the pieces after that shootout on Kronos.
Okay.
And Kronos is spelled the correct way in the comic, not K-R-O. So that's awesome. So if you're going to get on us about having issues with canon, maybe get on those who are the keeper of it for not being consistent.
Those guys don't care about canon.
No, they ought to be shot out of one, though.
All right. Romulo Garcia.
That is a cool name, Romulo.
Isn't it? I couldn't disagree
That's a
more.
justified villain right there.
Yeah, really. I couldn't disagree more with all the hate for this movie. I mean, it was an excellent movie. People are hating this movie because it changed a lot of things most grew up watching. How easily everyone forgets how awful movies like Star Trek the Motion Picture, Star Trek V, Generations, Insurrection, and that godforsaken movie Nemesis were. I hate to say it, but the formula needed to be changed. People were tired of seeing the same type of Star Trek movie over and over again, and that's why Nemesis did so poorly. I think that's probably true, that the formula did need to be changed.
Sure.
I think people were tired of the sort of the problem with these Star Trek movies is they always tend to feature these aging casts, right? The original series, everyone was just always getting older and fatter, and it's sort of true with the Next Generation cast as well. In the end, there, Riker could barely fit into his jumpsuit, and so I think that is true. Now, having said that, that has nothing to do with the problems that we see in Star Trek Into Darkness. And of course, you are a big fan of Star Trek 2009, Phil, right?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, and I mean, I like it fine. I don't love it the way you do, but I was always a little dubious of the kind of dumb angle that the reboot took. But it's okay, it works, and you like it a lot. So I think that yes, the formula did need to be changed, and it was changed in the 2009 film, successfully so. But that doesn't really have anything to do with the problems of Star Trek Into Darkness.
Again, like I don't think I believe that Scott and I's opinions on the movie, it's not that we have a problem with changing the formula, making Star Trek bigger and more summer blockbuster friendly. It's we just you're right. Like we did have a problem that it changed up whatever. It changed it. It hurt our impressions of what a good movie should be. Like it offended those sensibilities in a way, and maybe if we came off passions about it's because we care so much about this franchise. I mean, you had high hopes. This could have been the Dark Knight of Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
In fact, that's what Lindelof wanted it to be, or seemingly implied that they were heavily looking at Dark Knight in the years building up to Into Darkness's release as an inspiration.
Yeah.
That they wanted to go to a place similar to that.
Yeah.
And I think while the movie does go dark, tonally in times and literally in certain scenes, Khan's, murder rage on the bridge of the Vengeance as one of them, I feel like the movie misses the success that Dark Knight pulled off. It'd be like if we went into Dark Knight and all the plot holes in Dark Knight Rises were coming up in Dark Knight.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You'd walk away from that movie going, pretty bummed, because the first one promised so much and earned it so well. And you go into this, you're like, so this is what we're doing? Why are we running away from people? These alien people? Why did Kirk steal this thing? Oh, well, it's to get them out of the kill zone. But wait, isn't the kill zone the entire planet? Or a big chunk of it? Oh, okay. Well, anyway, we gotta get the Enterprise out of the ocean, but we can't expose it to these people because it'll create a spectacle. Sure, but wasn't putting it under the ocean also an spectacle?
They did that at night.
They did it at night when apparently people don't see things because movies. And then Spock. You know what, Captain? We're violating the Prime Directive. We shouldn't do that. You should just let me die in this volcano. Oh, but wait, we got these orders from the head of Starfleet telling us to take out a war criminal who just blew a hole in the world? We might want to take pause on that. We might want to disagree with that. So, follow the Prime Directive, good. Following the head of Starfleet's mandate, bad? I don't... Where are you going with that, Spock? Why are you so inconsistent?
Well, I think what happens is, so we have been accused of being very nitpicky about these plot points, and I think yes, the plot points there is a lot of inconsistency there if you look deep enough, or even not so deep. But I think the bigger point is that the script is written in such a way, the reason these things creep up is because the script is written in such a way that there's no organic flow. It's just, we need these guys to now do this, so we're just going to have them do this, and it doesn't matter if it really makes sense. So the result is that there's all these nitpicky things come up because, we need Harrison we want him on the Klingon planet now, so he's on the Klingon planet now. It's like, what? Okay. All right, and it's just a movie full of those things. So a lot of the stuff sounds nitpicky, but it's also ultimately comes down to just the lazy writing, which they're just not willing to really think the stuff through enough so that it doesn't. Doesn't.
Oh, sorry, Scott. Go ahead.
No, it's fine.
I was just gonna agree with you on that, and also add that I mean, as negative as we are in this movie, I think the filmmakers, they didn't wake up and spend however many years going, we're going to make a bad movie. No. I think they did do some hard work. I think they racked their brains and they did the best with what they had. And, if we're being accused of being nitpicky, we're only putting under the microscope that which they put out in front of us. Mm-hmm. And, if you really put Star Trek 2009 under the microscope, it's probably going to fall apart. Yeah. And I had never really found some plot issues with it that others have in the past that have like brought up in recent weeks as a result of Into Darkness, like calling it out on Facebook and things like that. Like there was a couple of lines were like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. And I agree with Devin over at Badass Digest, who says that the reason why we weren't so eager or aware of the trappings of that movie was because it moved so well and had such a good pace and a heart, and you were just enthralled with the fun of this movie that it just kind of like fell by the wayside in a good way. The movie held up despite its wobbly moorings, Mm-hmm. But as this movie played out, because it is so plot driven, and because the fun of the characters, we've already done that, and now we're playing with them a little bit more. We're exploring them in different ways and seeing what they can do on their own after being built up, after their origin has been told. You get to see some more warts on this thing.
Yeah.
And when your movie chooses to say directly to camera, directly to the characters on screen, fire 72 torpedoes at one guy, that brings up some questions. Why are we supposed to fire all 72? What is the plan there?
Right.
And okay, there's a war coming with the Klingons because I say so. Like, how is that supported?
Yeah.
Like, what of all the places Khan could run to, why Kronos?
Admiral Marcus is he's not a very well developed character.
There's a lot that could have been awesome there. I don't know what happened, but it's, again, in defense of us, you can disagree with us all fine. It's just, when you come at us, if your arguments, your counter arguments are based on, well, we're being too nitpicky about elements in the film that are big things making that movie happen, then I'm sorry, but that's not going to hold water, really, because we're just taking what they throw out there and extrapolating it.
Yeah.
And if you can tell us why the movie makes sense despite the nonsensicalness of it, let us know.
Yeah.
No one wants to like this movie, I think, more than me. I don't want to speak for Scott, but I really wanted to like this movie. I really wanted to love it.
Yeah.
It just didn't seem to want to help me out.
And people have sent in explanations regarding certain things, and most of them still don't make sense to me. For example, and we're gonna have to wrap this pretty soon, I guess, but our crybaby response to everyone. But Will from Milwaukee wrote in, and he said he had a lot to say, actually. But he said, if you're a Vulcan and you don't trust the villain that your captain has just made a plan with, isn't it logical to call your prime universe self to see if he might have some insight into the mind of this new unknown person who you clearly do not trust? Just saying. So, yeah.
Maybe, sure.
It's logical. Does it make good dramatic sense from a storytelling point of view?
That's problematic.
I don't think it does. I understand a lot of people are, they have, like, I think this is why I cite this, because, Will, what he's saying makes sense, like, if you live in that universe, sure. If you actually live on the Enterprise, like, if you were like crewman number, supernumerary number 7, you'd be like, oh fuck yeah, Spock's calling Spock Prime. He should have fucking done that yesterday. But when you're in the audience watching it, it's like, for me anyway, and I know you feel the same way to some degree. It's kind of like, well, so when does he stop calling him? Why isn't he? He should have Spock draw up a Venn diagram of everything that's going to happen, in the next 80 years. And as a matter of fact, the new Spock could just stay home from now on, rather than
right.
get involved in all the bad shit that's about to go down in his life.
Just be like, hey, so this thing happened, should we worry? Just nod. Or raise one eyebrow for yes, both for no.
There's always going to be some kind of explanation for these things. Why did they run away from the volcano? Whatever.
Yeah,
But if it doesn't serve the bigger story, if it doesn't it doesn't feel right, I mean, the Spock thing in particular really bothered me
I was
because it's
less
just
bothered by that than you. Spock talking to Spock Prime. I think mostly because I just liked because it brought back someone I loved in
it brings
connection
him
to
back,
the
but
movie
he
that I
doesn't.
loved.
It brings him back, but he doesn't do anything. I mean,
No.
I would rather see Leonard Nimoy in a solo Star Trek movie as Spock. It could be. It doesn't even have to be a big budget thing. Put them in a room with.
Sure.
Put them in a room with Brent Spiner for 2 hours.
All right.
That's
Like
my
Sideways.
That's my pitch for Star Trek 3. Yes.
Sideways with Spock and Data. I'd see that movie.
All right. One more point. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Phil.
I was gonna say, I know that back to the nitpicky thing. It's the science and the logic of whatever. Like, I get it. It's a movie. It's the movie where phasers and transporters and spaceships and aliens and Klingons exist. So there's the suspension of disbelief there. That's fine. But when the drama is emotionally less than truthful, when certain physical story elements don't play out, like that's the thing I'm most nitpicky about.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, the transwarp beaming equation thing, yes, that's an issue. Sure. But the bigger issue is when your hero is called out on the carpet for being very cavalier about life and death stakes. And by the end of the movie, he literally strides away from having just died. And no one addresses the emotional fallout of that, really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, like I said before, that doesn't teach him a lesson about the no-win scenario. It emboldens him to never have to learn one. Especially when you got a vial of Lazarus blood hanging around.
Yeah.
When you introduce a cure to death in your movie as a convenience and don't follow up on what that means to these people, what that means to this universe, that's I'm sorry. Then I say, instead of doing that, I say rewrite everything before it so that you don't have to. And that's the big, and I hope that comes across better in this discussion than it seemingly did in our first one. Because that's what I don't want. I hope the listeners don't think that me and Scott, if it's all right if I speak for you, I hope the listeners don't think that we're just sitting here like the fucking old guys in the balcony in the Muppet Show. We're just, back in my day, get off my yarding things,
Right. Yeah.
It's just, some of us watch movies differently than others, and some of us, I don't want to say have a training, but some of us, just have been used to looking through story in a particular lens that others aren't, like general audiences or whatever. And that's just what we're looking for. And I think all of us agree that we like good things, and we want the things we care about to be good.
And we like all good things also.
And we like all good things. But when something like this falls short, and it's such a big deal to this fan base, it's gonna bear, some whips and chains.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I mean, there's a certain fanboy mentality, which everyone who's into this kind of stuff can fall into to some degree, which is, how could you not like it if I liked it, and that's fair enough. So I think we're gonna have to move on to our red shirt in a second, but I think one last common thread that we got from a lot of people, which was sort of, I liked it. It wasn't great. I liked Star Trek Into Darkness, but what do you expect? It was just dumb popcorn entertainment. So I liked it for what it was, and I mean that I don't care for that. That argument much at all.
I wish I could enjoy it that way. I wish I could just see movies that way.
Yeah, it's just for the amount of time and effort that is put into these things, it should be more than that.
I agree.
And I think like a movie like The Avengers, I mean, Avengers isn't high art, but you can see how a movie like Avengers can be popcorn, but can also have a lot going on, same with Dark Knight. There's a lot of them, so I don't think that Star Trek Into Darkness, I don't think saying, oh, well, it's just dumb popcorn entertainment. I don't think, I mean, so you're saying it's dumb?
Right. I mean, I think, Scott, you that was a really good argument to make, and I think we're going to close this out. I think Captain Kirk said it best in the episode Miri. No blah, blah, blah.
I just literally slapped my knee at that. Very good.
Here all week, folks. Try the meal. Don't forget to validate your parking.
Speaking of the original Captain Kirk.
I'm Captain Kirk. That was me within. That was me trying to do.
That's the sweaty Kirk.
That's the sweaty Kirk.
Sweaty Kirk with mascara.
Give me the brandy, Kirk.
Red shirt.
We take this time to remember those who have laid their lives down for Starfleet. This is the Red Shirt of the Week.
Red shirt. You know, since we're talking about darkness and Abrams' Trek, I think it's important to call attention to the red shirt Hendorf, who also known as Cupcake. Before he was Cupcake, in one of my favorite original series episodes, Star Trek Season 2's The Apple. It's a good damn episode, man.
Really? The apple?
I think it is.
With that big paper mache monster?
Minus that.
Okay.
I think the story is good. I think it's I just remember having good fond memories of it.
Okay.
And I'm a big fan of killer rubber plants shooting, flower darts into people and killing them. And that's what happened to crewman Hendorf. He, as per one is wont to do when on a red sky planet full of paper mache snake demon head things, you're walking around Gamma Trianguli 6. You see a spiky plant moving on its own accord towards you. And, because plants don't kill people, you'd naturally walk over to take a peek. And then you realize this thing has a blow dart for a stamen. and then you're done. And then you're just taken out. And Kirk doesn't seem to be bothered by this. And I know we talked before about the guy who stepped on the landmine rock. See, this planet was just bad news. I mean, this planet was like sculpted out of the Genesis device equivalent of murder. It's like one giant overlook hotel with a cheaper budget and less snow.
Doesn't Spock get it in the back also?
He does.
But he's okay because of his Vulcan blood or something.
You know what? Spock gets effed up a lot in the back. I think he gets shot. He gets shot by a plant, either in the chest or the back in this episode, and he gets killed by one of those rubber sentient pancake things from Operation Annihilate.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And
doesn't he also take a bullet in the back? The one with the arms race metaphor, Taste of
Armageddon. I think he does.
I think he gets shot in the back with a flintlock or something.
Oh wait, no, that's not Taste of Armageddon. That's
Or is that the Julian Newmar episode?
Where does he get shot with a gun?
I can picture him clutching
I know McCoy gets shot in Shore Leave.
Yeah, no, not that one. I'm pretty sure he. Yeah, well, I don't know. We'll have to look it up.
Yeah, see, we're failing you guys. We're sorry.
Someone look it up and get back to us on that.
But Hendorf, he's probably wishing he did get shot by a plant, because it's better than getting shot by a plant. And on that note, we tie off our black armbands in salute to crewman Hendorf.
Yes.
Who I'm pretty sure Kirk just left behind.
Yeah, no doubt.
He's there with glitter-faced hippies running around in greens, barely anything, just rotting away. He's compost now. Ironically, he's become the very plant that killed him. The compost thing, full circle of life.
You know what? Before we close, we're running long here because this was supposed to be a half-hour episode. But before we close out, I wanted to really quickly get people's feedback on something here. Let me see if I can find it. Someone had just posted on Bo Llewellyn, if that's how you say his name. I can't pronounce anyone's name correctly. I'm sorry. He posted on our Facebook page today. He said, "When I was a kid, I recorded Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan off TV. I remembered a scene where Khan saw the Enterprise warp out. This was after his 'From Hell's Heart I Stab at Thee' death scene. I remember distinctly that Khan had this look of anguish on his face as the Enterprise was shown on his monitor warping away right before the Reliant blew up. I have not seen this scene since. I know there are alternate scenes shot for TV at times, but it wasn't on the DVD. Has anyone heard of this?" Does that ring a bell to you, Phil?
You know, I mean, watching Wrath of Khan on ABC does ring a bell, but that beat does not. I'm sorry. I did see it on the Facebook page, and I'm glad we talked about it here. I'm glad you brought it up, Scott. I wish I could help.
I figured you would remember it if anyone would. Well, if anyone out there remembers, post on our Facebook and let us know because yeah, sometimes there are these alternate scenes that don't quite make it. And
what I would suggest to Bo is if he has it or knows someone who does, or there's a video store nearby or Amazon, whatever, get your hands on the Star Trek 2 2-disc DVD release that's like the director's edition.
Oh, right.
Because there are some shots, some alternate stuff in there that's basically the extended cut for TV.
Okay.
They made longer cuts, for movies to air on television to compensate for commercial breaks.
Right, yeah. Okay. All right, cool.
So that might be in there because I know that there's a little bit of business with Carol Marcus.
Getting busy with Captain Kirk?
Getting busy with Kirk. That is not in the theatrical release that's in there that I remember distinctly going, hey, what happened there?
Right.
But check that out, Bo, and I'm sure we could help you.
All right, well, as always, everyone, thanks for tuning in, listening to us be bitches about your very polite comments.
I hope we weren't too bitchy. I think we were 60% less bitchy than
we could have been.
Than we could have been, and I'm very proud of that statistic. I stand by that. Because I could have been a dick. I could have got on a high horse and strapped on my monocle.
Yes. Well, thanks as always for podcasting with me, Phil.
Scott, I have been and always shall be your friend. Thank you for podcasting with me. And if you ever want to swap Katras, let me know.
Okay, my hand's on the plexiglass right now.
So is mine. But I'm not radiation burned at all, and for some reason I'm going to close the door behind me. In the middle of the conversation. I'm not sure why I'm doing that. And then you're going to cry. And you're going to scream, see you on Gravette Island.